Our focus for this year's Reformation celebration is the doctrine of limited atonement. Now, out of the 5 points of Calvinism, this one in particular is the most contested. And evidence of that is, for those that call themselves 4-point Calvinist, generally limited atonement is the one to go. Now, for some, maybe the reason is because of the term itself. For some, the term itself may imply that the majesty and the power of Christ's atonement is limited or somehow diminished. But in actuality, the doctrine does quite the opposite. It extols the majesty and the power of Christ's atonement. You see, for it teaches that Christ perfectly accomplished what he set out to do, namely in Mark 10:35, to give his life as a ransom for many. This is why many Reformed theologians prefer the terms definite atonement or particular redemption. Kevin DeYoung, explaining these terms, writes, "The point of the doctrine is not to limit the mercy of God, but to make clear that Jesus' death was for his particular people." Another great definition comes by the way of R.C. Sproul. He writes, "God the Father designed the work of redemption specifically with a view to provide salvation for the elect, and that Christ died for his sheep and laid down his life for those the Father had given to him." See, what these definitions do is lay out these two aspects of this doctrine, and both are important. They cover both the intent and the efficacy of the atonement. That is, the questions, for who did Christ die, and what did his death actually accomplish? So let's take each one of those in turn. First, the intent. The doctrine of particular redemption teaches that Christ came to die for a particular people. God's intention was not to redeem every single person by his blood, but to redeem the elect. And we see this all over the scriptures. A great passage is in John 10:11, when Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." He continues in verse 14, "I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me." Verse 15, "I lay down my life for the sheep." There is a particularity in that passage, isn't there? I know my own, and those are who I came to save. The scriptures testify that there is a general love of God for all creation. We call this God's love of benevolence, right? But there is a particular love. In Ephesians 1, the Apostle Paul writes, "In love, he predestined us." You see, there is a predestining, there's an electing love, there's a redeeming love, there's an atoning love. And that's the love that this doctrine particularly focuses in on, right? And Christ's redeeming love, Christ's blood is not spilt needlessly. You see, when we think about this, we have to understand that the doctrine of limited atonement or definite atonement, right, follows the doctrine of unconditional election. Right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't logically follow to say that God elects some for salvation from eternity past, but that Christ came to do the work for everyone. Right? It's as if there's a division in the Godhead itself. No, the only tenable biblical position is that the atonement of Christ was for a particular people. And the second aspect is, what did it accomplish? What is its efficacy? Now, the doctrine of definite atonement teaches that the work of Jesus effectively accomplished what it was set out to do, namely to save sinners. You see, the Arminian position, in contrast with this, says that the work of Christ only made salvation possible. Right? In that sense, it is often compared to writing a check. The atonement of Christ, as it were, writes the check to pay our ransom, but individuals, right, individual people, we have to cash that check in order to be saved, in order for it to take effect. Now, DeYoung, responding to this kind of reasoning, writes this. He says, "Christ does not come to us merely saying, 'I have done my part. Now, if you would only believe and come to me, I can save you. No. Instead, Jesus says, I was pierced for your transgressions. I was crushed for your iniquities. Isaiah 53:5. I have purchased with my blood men for God for every tribe, every language, every people, and every nation. Revelation 5:9. Here is why the check analogy doesn't work. You see, on the cross, Jesus is not potentially bearing wrath. He is actually bearing God's wrath. He is not potentially suffering. He is actually suffering. You see, when you write a check, the money isn't pulled from your account until the other person cashes it. Writing a check only has the potential to cost you something. But that is not how the atonement is presented in the scriptures, is it, friends? No. Jesus bears the wrath of God, meaning he is not potentially paying for sins, he actually pays for them. So you see, if Jesus died for the whole world, if Jesus bled for everyone, then by necessity, everyone would be saved, wouldn't they? I mean, think about it. If Jesus bled for the non-elect, right? If Jesus bled for those who are unbelievers, then how is God going to punish them in hell? Right? How is God going to punish Jesus once and then punish sinners again a second time in hell? It would be as if God is unjust. No, friends, the only faithful option in regards to the view of the atonement is a definite atonement. That Christ's work was for a specific people and it accomplished the task he set out to do. It actually saved sinners. In his book, titled The Reformed Doctrine of Predestination, Loraine Bottner writes this. He says, for the Calvinist, Christ's atonement is like a narrow bridge which goes all the way across the stream. For the Arminian, it's like a great wide bridge that only goes halfway. That's the work. For the Calvinist, for the Reformed position, Christ's work was particular, it was narrow, it was for a specific people, and it was definite. It accomplished its purpose. It goes all the way across. I want to leave us with these words as we get ourselves prepared for this conference. Friends, on the cross, the words of Jesus were not, I made it possible. No, the words of Jesus were, it is finished. And thanks be to God that Christ did not merely provide us a potential, a chance to be saved, but that Christ provided for us salvation.